Garber here, part of Shangri-La Gardens' investigative news team. I'm still on the hunt for scientists, and I have found one that works at International Paper. Tell me, sir, what is your name and what is your job title?
My name is Stephen Greer, and I'm an environmental engineer at International Paper.
An environmental engineer? We haven't spoken to an environmental engineer yet. This is exciting. Now, tell me exactly, what does an environmental engineer do?
Well, Garrett, they're involved in trying to keep the water clean, keep the air clean, and working with the state to do that, and working with whoever or whatever company they're working with to make sure that we follow all the rules and even do better than that when we can. So
that's wonderful. Now, does your job require you to go to college or have a specific degree?
Yes, usually. Usually have to get a bachelor's degree in science, maybe biology or environmental science. I actually went a lot further than that. I have a PhD in biology. So it just depends, you know, if you like school and if you really like science. There's a lot that you can do out there in the environmental world.
Wow, a PhD in biology. He must be very smart. Now, why do you work as an environmental engineer? Why is this an important job?
Well, I used to do research, and I like to do that a lot. And, you know, there's good and bad to that. I mean, you get to write papers and you get to do things, but now I'm much more in an applied role where I go out and I get to help the community, help International Paper as a corporation, help the local mill that I work with, and bring a lot of these ideas that I've worked on, maybe in a lab, to the business, and hopefully change for better the way we do things. One of the things that I've been really involved with is implementing what we call green chemistry, using natural or trying to use more and more natural ways to make paper, to recycle, to regenerate a lot of things. So beneficial reuse is a big deal for us. Planting trees, understanding forestry. All this requires you know, not just an understanding of what you can do in the lab, but being able to go out and do it in an actual setting and maybe with the company, so that we can make these products like paper and all the different packaging and things that are important for medicine and stuff like that, and at the same time do it responsibly, ethically, and really change the world. You know, I mean, that's why I do what I do. I love science. I got into science because really to change the world and make the world a better place, and that's how I ended up kind of in an International Paper. They believed in that, and they hired me to try to make it a better place. So that's what I've been doing.
How interesting. So it sounds like your job is a lot of application. Do you spend most of your time in the field or in the office?
A little bit of both. There's a lot of, you know, communication and government work and things. You know, we talk with a lot of government agencies. Since I'm in Texas, I work with the Texas Center of Environmental Quality, TCEQ. But, you know, if you're in this, wherever you work at, you'll end up working with state and federal agencies, and that requires writing. But also then you want to be in the field. I mean, you can't really take care of the environment if you don't know what's going on out there. So we do a lot of that. I actually do a lot of wastewater treatment, a lot of landfill management and things like that, as well as help with air.
Wonderful. Now tell us, what is your favorite part of your job?
Making a difference, you know. It's sometimes hard, you know, to try to get moving on things, but I think in the right context and with the right company and with the right opportunities, if you push hard, you can make a difference, and not just in your community, but I mean, it sounds crazy, but in the world. There's a lot of things that I've developed in a lab that I've written some papers on that I think have made a lot of differences in the world, but I'm able to do a lot of that also where I'm at now. So I love being able to do that. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe when I retire, I can look back at a career and say, wow, I was involved in a lot of things. It's kind of crazy. Science is the way of the future. It gives you a chance to make a mark, to change things forever. So in a good way, hopefully.
Wonderful. One small step at a time, it sounds like. Now tell us, what is your least favorite part of your job? You can be honest with us.
It's just sometimes a lot of work. Sometimes you get caught up in all the stuff you have to do, also the responsibility. There is a lot of responsibility if you're going to take care of the environment, especially for a company. So I wouldn't say that's the worst part. Someone's got to do it, but it is, you know, it's a hard thing. You have to be that type of person that owns up to responsibility, really cares, maybe cares more than a lot of other people about stuff, and fights for it. So that's not always easy. It takes a lot out of you, but and there's a lot of time, but it's rewarding. So.
Wonderful. So that doesn't sound too bad at all, does it?
No.
Now, do you have any advice you could give maybe some future scientists or someone who may want to work at international paper someday?
Dream big, you know. Think of how you can change the world for good. I mean, you know, we're coming through a pandemic now. That's an easy way of doing things in some ways, of thinking how you can maybe make a big difference in medicine. But that's not the only way. And sometimes some of these other ways are much more pressing, in my opinion. It's all related. So the things you learn in genetics can help for medicine, but it also can help for breeding better crops for the world so people don't starve. Doing better justice by the land. Making products better. Doing less environmental damage. Not just protecting people, but protecting wildlife. So dream big. I mean, you know, you guys are young. I might not be in the workforce that much longer, but if you want to change your world, I really believe that you need to be at least cognizant and understanding of what science is. But man, put your hand in it. Become a scientist. The world needs world-changing scientists.
What great advice. We've seen that as a common theme. Practice things that you might enjoy so you can make a small difference that eventually adds up to big differences. Now this is the most important question today. What was your favorite subject in school?
Well, you know, believe it or not, you would think it would have been biology, but I used to like poetry and literature a lot more. I'm not your typical scientist, at least the way that I became one. But it's actually helped me, believe it or not. I think outside the box in a lot of things that I do. I'm not like a lot of scientists. So, you know, I think anything can get you interested in science, because what I'm more interested in is making a difference, and science is that platform to help make a difference. But yeah, I like poetry. I'm married to my wife. She writes books. So, but you know, since I've done a lot of science, I like biology a lot as well. So all that kind of adds up to me. Philosophy is another bunch of classes that I took when I was in college. Philosophy, poetry, biology.
Wonderful. So something different for each one of our scientists that we've interviewed. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this presentation. And I know our students in the classroom here are going to enjoy it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Garrett Garber here, part of Shangri-La Botanical Gardens investigative news team. I've been out all around Orange County on the hunt for scientists, and I found one who I'm going to introduce you to today. So tell me, what is your name?
My name is Paige Ruth Pritchard.
And Paige, what is your job title?
I am an environmental investigator for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
So is TCEQ a government agency then?
Yes, TCEQ is run by the state of Texas.
Now tell me, what does an environmental investigator do exactly?
I investigate public drinking water systems, and essentially you just go around and make sure that these water systems are following the rules that the state of Texas has in place.
Well, that is something that is very important, clean drinking water. Now, does your job require a specific college degree or certification?
My job requires a 4-year science degree or 4 years of experience in that field.
So either a 4-year degree or 4 years of applicable experience. That is fantastic. Now, why is the job of an environmental investigator important?
Well, it's important for public health and safety, and it's just also very important to make sure that our natural resources are being protected in the state of Texas.
Now, could you describe a typical week for us?
So a typical week for me, I would be out in the field twice a week. So I would be driving around different parts of Texas. And then the rest of the week, I would be spent inside writing reports.
Reports, a common denominator amongst our scientists that we've spoken with. Now, what is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is getting to travel and seeing the different parts of Texas, getting to meet new people, and just, going out and exploring.
Getting out in the field and exploring, what a fun job to do. Now, what is your least favorite part?
That would be paperwork. I don't really like writing reports, but it is part of my job. So.
And an important part, and one that has to be done. Now, do you have any advice that you could give future scientists or maybe those who might be interested in working at TCEQ someday?
So with any science field, you're going to want to do your research on the different jobs that are available and just find something that really fits with like your personality and what you want out of a job. And then just kind of go for it, make good grades. That's about it.
Very sound advice. Now, this is the most important question, Paige. What is your favorite outdoor activity?
My favorite outdoor activity would have to be either kayaking or hunting.
Both very good choices. Well, thank you, Paige. We appreciate your time, and thank you for helping us keep our drinking water healthy. Garrett Garber here, investigative journalist with Shangri-La Gardens News Team. I'm here at the Chevron Phillips Chemical Company plant in Port Arthur, Texas, and I have found one of their scientists. So tell me, what is your name?
My name is Tracy Boudreaux.
And what do you do here at Chevron Phillips, Tracy?
I am the lab supervisor.
The lab supervisor. Now, what does Chevron Phillips make?
We manufacture and sell ethylene, propylene, and cyclohexane.
And what could that be found in? Anything that we've heard of?
Well, you'd be really surprised. It's in most things that you use in your day-to-day life. So they take those chemicals that we make and they are sold to other facilities that make plastics, they make carpeting, they make nylons, they make styrenes. So you would be really surprised. Detergents, I mean, so many things that you use in your everyday life come from the chemicals that we make here.
How interesting. Who knew? Now, Tracy, what does a lab supervisor do?
Well, mostly my job entails communicating and coordinating. So most of my day consists of replying to emails, talking to my testers, talking to my chemists, and dealing with the day-to-day activities. We are a 24-hour quality control lab. We help monitor the unit, making sure that we meet safety requirements, reliability, customer requirements, environmental requirements. And so we're basically customer service and support to the unit. So I manage those day-to-day activities and help support the lab. I do the budgeting, and that's pretty much it. Mostly support and communication.
How interesting. Have you always been a lab supervisor?
No, I haven't. I started off my career actually in Missouri doing pharmaceutical research. And then I decided to switch states and switch industries, and I came down here to the chemical industry, and I was a contract chemist actually for CPC here in Port Arthur. And then I was lucky enough to get the chemist position and for the company, and I did that for 4 years, and then I became the lab supervisor, and I've been doing that for 2 years.
Well, that's very interesting. So many different opportunities with these science degrees. Now, would you say that most of your job is spent in the lab, or is most of your time spent in an office?
A mixture of both. More in my office, especially with how we're communicating today. A lot of emails, phone calls, online meetings through Teams. So probably mostly my office, but I do have to get out here every day, see how things are going in the lab, go to meetings over in the admin building with different groups, mostly communication.
Wonderful. Now, does your position require a specific college degree or certification?
Yes, it requires a bachelor's in some sort of science. So that could be chemistry, that could be biochemistry, environmental science, or biology. So any of those would be acceptable for my position.
Wonderful. Another 4-year degree requirement in the field of science. How interesting. Now tell me, what is the favorite part of your day?
Probably building relationships and communicating with people. I really love interacting with people, especially meeting new people, new employees coming in. I love giving them a lab tour and telling them how we're important to the plant, and supporting the unit and working with groups and teams.
Wow, sounds like we found a really great scientist to interview. Now you can be honest with our friends at home. What is your least favorite part of your position?
Definitely running the lab during big environmental events. Hurricanes, snowstorms. Since we're a 24-hour lab, as long as the unit is up and running, the lab needs to be up and running. And when we have hurricanes, when we have snowstorms, it's hard for the employees to get here, so I have to figure out how to staff the lab, how to keep the lab going, how to get the testing done, and how to keep everybody safe during those events.
That sounds stressful. Wowzers.
Stressful.
Now, do you have any advice that you could give a future scientist or someone who might be interested in working at Chevron Phillips someday?
Definitely do your research. Reach out to people and try to figure out what type of job you would like to go for, whether you'd like to be a tester or a chemist or a supervisor, and also research what type of scientist or chemist you'd like to be. There's so many different types. There is quality control, like we do here. There's research, there's the medical field, there's pharmaceuticals, there's refinery, there's chemical, there's environmental. There's just so many different types. So if you can kind of figure out what type you're interested in, that kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage going into college.
What great advice. Thank you. Now, for the final and most important question, what is your favorite animal?
Oh gosh, my favorite animal. This is going to be an odd one, but I'm going to go for it. My favorite animal is actually a possum.
A possum? That is a great animal.
Right. I feel like they get a bad rap. Like, nobody likes possums, but they do a lot of really good things. They clean up trash, and they eat a lot of things that other animals don't want to. So they clean stuff up, and they actually are like immune to like Lyme disease. And so they eat a whole bunch of ticks, and I know that's odd, but they do a lot of really good things, but they get a bad rap for like having rabies, and I don't know, and very rarely do they ever have rabies.
That's right, an often underestimated animal. Well, that is just so interesting. Thank you for having us here today in your lab, for showing us around. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in luck today. We've been able to reach a second scientist from Invista. So tell me, ma'am, what is your name and what is your job title?
My name is Kirti Gasula, and my title is Analytical Scientist.
Analytical Scientist. Now tell me, we met with a colleague of yours earlier, and he told us what you do at Invista and the things that you produce, but what do you do for your job exactly? What is an analytical scientist?
So my job is exactly working on the analytical methods. So whenever we get the samples into the lab, we test them based on some methods. So I work on that methods, and then these samples are analyzed and tested on an instrument. So I troubleshoot those instruments too.
Wow, that is impressive. Who knew? Now tell me, it sounds like it probably does, but does your job require a college degree?
Yes, it does require a college degree.
And what did you go to school for?
I went to school for a master's in chemistry.
Another master's degree in chemistry. These Invista folks sure are smart. Now tell me, why do you work as an analytical scientist? Why is this an important position?
To make sure the analytical methods are precise and making sure the samples which we get from the unit are run in a good manner, and then we send out accurate results to the unit and make sure the instruments are working fine, which tests the samples.
How interesting. Now, describe a typical day for our viewers. Do you spend most of your time in the lab, or do you ever get to go outside?
I do spend most of my time in the lab. Like sometimes if there's an investigation which I have to look into, then I might have to go into the unit too sometimes. Yeah.
So mostly in the lab, but sometimes out in the field.
Sometimes, yeah.
Wonderful. Now, what is your favorite part of your job?
So as I said, I troubleshoot on the instruments. Whenever I get challenges, it just gives me up a boost to do a little bit more. And my troubleshooting skills that's what the most favorite part of my job.
Wonderful. A woman who can solve problems. Now, tell our viewers at home, and you can be honest with us, what is your least favorite part?
So whenever the instrument gets old, you have to buy a new instrument, right? So we have a process called DMF where you ask money to buy new instruments. So that's a little bit critical. So that's my least favorite.
Least favorite part. No one likes to ask for money.
Yes.
Okay, now tell me, do you have any advice for future scientists or those who might be interested in working at Avista someday?
Yes, it's definitely a growing field, and they're like on daily basis you get a lot of opportunities seeing, and then there's like a lot of research and development going on. So there's just a lot more to come. There's just a lot more, so you have to just get into this field. Yeah.
Wonderful. That is another set of sound advice. Now, for the most important question, what is your favorite animal?
A dog?
A dog? Do you have pets at home?
Not right now. I'm planning.
She's planning on it. Maybe someday, friends. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of the lab and visiting with us. I sure know our viewers in the classroom learned something today. Thank you. Garrett Garber here with Shangri-La Botanical Gardens Investigative News Team. We're here with another Dow scientist, and we will have the opportunity to ask her a few questions. So tell me, what is your name and what is your job title?
Thank you. My name is Allison Ney, and my job title, I'm a laboratory technician.
Thank you, Allison. So as a lab technician, you work for Dow. So tell us a little bit about what your job is and what do you do on a normal basis? We spoke to one of your colleagues earlier who told us about Dow, but if you could tell.
Yes, I work as a lab tech. I do testing here in the lab for products to make sure they're of quality. And I work for a chemist also and do work for him.
Wonderful. Allison, so as part of your job, we spoke to a chemist technician and she did a lot of some testing of samples and things like that. Do you do similar work?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. Now, Allison, does your job require you to go to school for a specific degree or to have a specific certification?
No, not specifically. It does not require a degree, but I believe it requires chemistry work in college. And
Okay.
it's very good to have experience and science classes in college for the job.
Wonderful. So we heard it again. Experience is something needed for these positions. Now, Allison, if you don't mind me asking, did you go to college or did you work in the field to gain experience?
I did go to college. I studied biology at Lamar University, and I have a bachelor's of science in biology and a minor in chemistry.
Wonderful. So again, that a lot of science experience for someone with a biology degree. That is fantastic. Now tell me, Allison, why do you work as a lab technician? Why is this an important job?
It's an important job because we test products that are made in that are used to make things that we use on a daily basis, like perfume caps and Coke can lids. Even our product even goes in Nike shoes.
I'm sure those watching are familiar with some of those things. So, could you tell me about a typical day for you? Do you spend most of your time in the lab, or do you spend any of your time outside of the lab?
Right. My typical day includes lab work in the lab and also work in my office. So I would say about 50-50. A lot of time is spent in the lab, and there are times that I work in my office with paperwork, send emails, and communicate with people in offices.
Wonderful. So you do have some variation and variety in your day. That is fantastic. Now tell me, what is the favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is getting to talk to all my colleagues and just communicating with different people, figuring out solutions to problems. It's fun.
Wonderful. That sounds fantastic. Now tell me, and you can tell us at home, what is your least favorite part of your job?
My least favorite part is if I'm in a meeting and I have to talk, like public speaking, it always makes me nervous. And it's just like in school when you give a presentation, it's something that you have to deal with in your job also.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job. So, Allison, practice must make perfect. Do you have any advice that you could share with any future scientists out there, or maybe students who might be interested in a position at Dow?
Yes, I would say to keep asking questions. When you see somebody with a job that you think they might work with somebody who has a job you would like, just ask questions to them, and even use Google. You can Google Dow and see different products we make, and even look at the jobs at Dow that you might want in the future.
Well, that is fantastic advice. As you could probably tell, I love asking questions, and we seem to get lots of great answers and meet interesting people. That is wonderful. So, as my last question here, Allison, tell me, what is your favorite outdoor activity?
I love walking outside in the sunshine, and I love walking with my kids.
Oh, that is wonderful. If you haven't been out to Shangri-La Gardens recently, you should come out and see us and bring those kids. We have a great place to walk and be out in nature. So, Allison, thank you so much for your time. We sure appreciate you and all that Dow does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoa! There's so many different careers in science. Who knew there were so many in our community? I think we learned lots of valuable things and got some really good tips on how we might continue, or how you might continue your career in science. See you next time.